What's going on, everybody? It is Overreaction Time once again. I'm your host, Simon Samano, and we are back after a week off. And look who I got with me, none other than the one and only, the fabulous Farah Hannoun. Farah, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm good. Always happy to have you back. I hope you're happy to be back on the show.
Always. I'm ready.
Always ready. All right, we're going to get this thing going. Lots to talk about. Kamikaze, you know what time it is. Hit it.
I mean, guys, what are you fucking? Is this tonight's stupid question night? Are you guys that fucking stupid? You can't be that fucking stupid. Who gives a shit? One of the dumbest things I've ever read in my life. Fucking common sense. Everybody knows that.
All right, Farah, here we go. We're going to get started talking about the UFC Fight Night 255 main event, which took place this past Saturday in London, where we saw Leon Edwards take on Sean Brady. Man, pretty lopsided, pretty one-sided fight. Sean Brady comes away with an impressive finish of Leon Edwards. The first time he's been finished in his career. I don't know if you saw that coming. I don't think I really saw that coming. But let me go ahead and hit you with this first overreaction right off the top, Farah. Leon Edwards was overrated this whole time.
I'm going to go with overreaction because I think the idea here is we've clearly seen Leon Edwards struggle with this stylistic matchup. But his title win, his 2 title defenses came over strong grapplers. Now, I know some people argue that Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman are no longer in their prime, although I feel like with Usman, the criticism is a little bit unfair. It's probably the most unfair 3-fight losing skid you can see on the roster, considering what he did against Hamzat and the 2 fights with Leon and the outcome. But yeah, I think it's a tough one to call, but I just feel like it'll be a little bit disrespectful to Leon Edwards. Now, if we flip it and say that Leon is no longer going to be in the title picture, I wouldn't say that's an overreaction, but to say that he was overrated the entire time, the winning streak he was on, I know you can argue the level of competition and stuff, you can nitpick and all that, but longevity, it's hard to stay undefeated for that long. Come from behind knockout to become champion. He did defeat Usman one more time in the trilogy bout, beat Colby Covington. So a little bit tough to say that he was completely overrated. But, if we switch that question around in terms of will he be in the title picture again, or is he one of the greatest welterweights of all time, I'll have a different answer for that.
Yeah, well, but that's where I'm kind of coming from, because there was quite a few people who were already in that sort of greatest not greatest welterweight, but in the one of the greatest welterweights of all time. And I'm just saying, as I look back now at Leon's resume, it's just not as strong as I guess maybe I even thought in the moment. Like, yes, I knew Leon was a great striker and had great skills, but you look back at the resume, if you want to date it back however far, let's go back to 2021. The first fight against Bilal finished with the eye poke. You touched on the results. And I want to be clear. I'm not saying like he didn't deserve to be champion or like he was a fraud, which I've said about Colby Covington in the past on this show. I'm not going that far. But if you think about the title victory against Kamaru Usman, I mean, he pulled that miracle leg kick, head kick out of nowhere. So when I factor that in with what we've seen, in the title defense against Bilal and this, I don't know. I just feel like Leon is just not as great as we thought he was.
I think it's fair to say that. I think maybe you could say he overachieved, considering that deficiency in his game that we've seen. It's just the problem with welterweight is the upper echelon of the division is just all elite grapplers. And that's kind of why a Wonder Boy Thompson never became champion. I feel like Wonder Boy Thompson maybe at 85 could have been a champion, but at 170, you can't get to the top of the hill when you've got all those elite grapplers if you can't handle them, which is why I'm impressed that he was able to get there, considering that you had the Kamaru Usmans, the Colby Covingtons, the Gilbert Burns that were in the top of the division, and now obviously Bilal Muhammad, Sean Brady. So maybe in a sense he did overachieve a little bit, but I think it's a little bit actually impressive that he was able to become champion and defend his belt multiple times, considering that the upper echelon of the division has always been top heavy grapplers. So that's where I'm going at with this.
Good observation. I appreciate that. Hey, maybe my overreaction is a little bit of an overreaction, but I don't know. I have the benefit of hindsight now, and I'm using it to my advantage here. So you know how we work on this show, Farah.
Yeah. Just trying to get the other side of the thing.
Okay. All right. Well, let's keep this conversation going now with Leon Edwards, okay? Because we want to look ahead to his future, which you kind of touched on a little bit. You said in this last when we were just talking about him right now that he's out of the title equation. He's out of the title picture. He doesn't deserve that. So as I look ahead and I think about Leon Edwards and what should happen next, I come to one conclusion, Farah, and that is that Leon Edwards' next fight should absolutely be against Jorge Masvidal.
Oh, curveball.
Oh.
Okay, I wasn't thinking that at all. But you know what? Yeah. Because when I was thinking not an overreaction. Because when I was matchmaking, I was thinking MVP in the UK if they go back to London in July for a fight night. Thinking maybe Ian Machado, Gary, but I forgot about Jorge Masvidal. Masvidal. Yes.
Now's the time. Now is the time.
100%. I don't know what's going on with Jorge or if he's officially back in the testing pool or whatnot, but if they can get that July, I don't know. I'm assuming there's going to be a July show in London. If it is a fight night, even if it's a pay-per-view, actually should be a pay-per-view. If there is a pay-per-view in the UK in July, 100%. Yeah, not an overreaction. I didn't even think about Jorge Masvidal. I was thinking of like MVP and Ian Gary. I actually like the MVP one over Ian Gary, but no, Jorge Masvidal is the fight. If he's back in the testing pool, he's ready to go.
Yeah, number one, look, Leon doesn't need to be in a position where if he wins, then we're back to talking about Leon in the title picture. Like he needs a full reset. I feel like he was so fixated on Bilal Muhammad. It seemed like heading into the Sean Brady fight, it's probably what may have held him and his team back. I mean, they were still dwelling on that loss, in the week leading up to the fight, days leading up to the fight. They're still talking about him fighting in the middle of the night or early in the morning, right? But man, like now that he's out of the title equation, we've got unfinished business, Farah. 3-piece and a soda. I mean, we got to get this thing done, right? And if Jorge's coming back, I have said before on the show, like, hey, Jorge versus Conor. I don't even think Conor McGregor's ever going to fight again at this point. So what should happen? Dude, let's close that business. Let's finish that business between Jorge and Leon. That's the one to do.
I agree 100%. I'm just very curious to know. I know Leon kind of went away from the media after the loss to Bilal, like barely said anything, released a little statement that didn't say much. I'm curious to see where his head is at, because if he's still talking about the title, I think that's going to do him more harm than good. If he's open to the idea of just these fun type of matchups, because even I mentioned Ian Gary, MVP, he actually has options of fun stylistic matchups that aren't against heavy grapplers, and you mentioning Jorge Masvidal now. That's just going to depend on his mindset, because if he's still focused on the title and if he's going to go ahead and dismiss a Jorge Masvidal, I think that would be wrong on his part. You've won the title. You've defended it a couple of times. Right. He's not old by any means. He's only 33. But the idea is, like, if you have that ability, especially with the UK market, that you can be on pay-per-views, you can get big fights, I think that's the direction he should go 100%. But something tells me it won't. Something tells me it's going to be one of those back to the drawing board, title still in sights, but we'll see.
No, it's got to be the Masvidal fight, man. UFC's got to push that. They've got to push it. Jorge's supposed to come back later this year. They've got unfinished business. They've got to settle that. They've got to settle that for sure. And it's got to be in the UK, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be in the UK, but it's got to be. It just feels like that's. That's where they threw down in the backstage.
100%, exactly. And second of all, I think the UK right now, like with Tom Aspinall supposedly going to get his fight with Jon Jones, but Paddy Pimblett doing the US pay-per-view thing now, they have him on there. Who else have you got? Like the UK needs somebody there. Like I feel like they've got a lot of stars, but not a lot of stars available to compete in the UK, as we just saw this past weekend. So they need a Leon Edwards, and they could use a Leon Edwards in this market and just have him fight there all the time, especially if it's in those fun matchups like we just mentioned.
I mean, I guess the one thing to consider too for Leon is, look, in theory, you line up a fight with Jorge Masvidal, and that's a fight that he should win, you would think. I guess the only risk there is if you don't win that fight and it's your third loss in a row, then where does that leave you? Maybe, but I think now's the time, though. I don't know. That's where I'm at. It's got to happen.
No, I agree. Not an overreaction. We're on the same page here.
All right. Now, let's talk more about the UFC London main event, okay? But let's flip it over and let's talk about Sean Brady, all right? Let's give him his flowers. Impressive victory, okay? So let me just go ahead and hit you with this one now, Farah. Sean Brady reestablished himself as a legitimate welterweight title contender.
Over Shavkat Rakhmonov?
Not over anybody, but he's there. He's not over Shavkat, but he is a legitimate title contender. Not the next title challenger. He's not going to get the next shot, but he is a legitimate title contender. He is reestablished himself.
Oh, absolutely. That a performance like that, you can't say otherwise. I mean, I love Bilal, but he did it better than Bilal did. Became the first man to finish Leon Edwards. Can't believe there wasn't a 10-8 in there at all. What was it, the second round that he had, I think, was it the second most control time ever, or the most control time ever, at 4 minutes, 57 seconds. I don't think Leon landed a single strike. If that's not a 10-8 round, then what on earth is a 10-8 round? So
control doesn't usually get you 10-8s, though.
Yeah, apparently not. But I mean, he was as dominant as he possibly could have been.
100%.
I think this went better than he would have even imagined, if I'm honest. So went out there, finished him, dominated him. It's hard to deny him like being or in the title conversation 100%. Especially there's that story with Bilal. Now, like Bilal's win over Brady has aged so gracefully over time, especially that it was Bilal's first finish in years. So yeah, it makes for a good story as well if they end up meeting each other again.
Yeah, and what do you think? A little bit of matchmaking hat on here. Well, what do you think makes sense then for Sean Brady? I mean, 3 wins in a row, right? So he's got a nice streak going for him. I'm sure he thinks he's got a case for a title shot, but realistically, we know that JDM and Bilal are going to handle their business in May, and then it's going to be Shavkat after that. Where does that leave Sean Brady, you think?
Well, that's the thing. Like, if the UFC do go ahead and do Shavkat, I think the only thing you think of is maybe Ian Machado Gary. Like, that's when you look at the rankings. Or, I mean, Kamaru's or
Usman,
Joaquin,
right?
Yeah, Usman or Joaquin Buckley. I don't like the idea of eliminating a contender. I've never been a fan of that. Yeah, never been a fan. Like, you've got fresh faces. Well, I guess Brady's not really fresh for Bilal per se, but he's fresh in terms of the title picture. Don't knock off a contender by matching these two guys. It just kind of seems unfair when all the other welterweights have gone through wins and losses and stuff to have to kill somebody's streak. So I know that's where people would think, but I'm not a fan of booking Joaquin and Brady. I think you go Usman Buckley, and then you go maybe Ian Machado Gary and Brady. Although I know Ian is coming off of a loss, but it was a kind of a respectable effort against Shavkat, and he was undefeated before that on a nice streak. I think 7-0 in the UFC prior. And then with Buckley and Usman, I know Usman, again, I put that asterisk on his 3-fight losing skid because I just feel it doesn't really I don't think he's done. I know his knees are bad and it's been a minute, but I still think Usman is legit. So that's the way I would go. I'd go Usman and Buckley just because I think that would be a fun build-up. And I would go Brady and Ian Machado Gary.
Okay, and then I'm curious to get your thoughts, Shafado. What do you think are Sean Brady's chances of actually winning the title? Like, how do you think he ranks there? Because I feel pretty good about Sean Brady. Like, beyond just being a great fighter, he's a really good athlete overall. And I think of him being like he reminds me a lot of Chad Mendes during Chad Mendes's prime, right? The great grappling, but he was also like a really good athlete, quick, fast, can take you down. Striking is pretty good in the stand-up. I mean, like, how do you see him if it's a rematch against Bilal? If it's Shavkat who wins the title, like, how do you think he stacks up against those guys?
I think Bilal is probably his toughest matchup because Bilal, I think for Brady, like I was impressed with his cardio over 4 rounds, but there wasn't much resistance, right? So it's tough to gauge in that sense. Bilal will give him resistance in the grappling. Bilal does push the pace. He does press forward, kind of what Brady did to Leon. So that's kind of why it ended up being a bit of a slugfest on the feet between the two of them at UFC 280, where both of them were just kind of striking the pocket. And Brady had some good lands early in that fight, but he just got overwhelmed by Bilal's pace and pressure, which ultimately got him the finish. So I think in that regard, not necessarily only going off of that first fight, but I think Bilal is his toughest matchup. Shavkat, there's the question marks over the cardio because Ian had that late surge in their fight and whatnot. So I do believe Bilal's probably his toughest matchup because he brings similar attributes, although I know Brady's a bigger submission threat than Bilal is. But yeah, it's that Bilal's cardio has proven to be insane. So that's who I feel is the toughest matchup. Otherwise, anyone else in the division? Yeah, it's interesting. I think Kamaru is also a bit of a tough matchup as well. Like Kamaru would,
Really?
yeah. I think stylistically, I think Kamaru is like, I mean, he survived Hamzat's wrath on short notice and managed to turn the table on him. Like that's what I'm saying about Kamaru, and like that 3-fight losing streak is a weird
I
one.
know, but I feel like Kamaru's going to be very aware of his body the next time he fights. You know, and
The
it might.
layoff, yeah,
That's the
yeah.
thing.
It's just the layoff for me, which is why I hope. I don't know. He doesn't really like go into detail when he talks about when I'm ready. That's all he says, when I'm ready. So I don't know what he's talking about exactly. I know he's had some injuries, but minus the layoff, if we're just looking at pure skill set, I think Kamaru is a tough matchup for Brady as well. So I'd say Kamaru and Bilal, only because Shafkat, like, there's still some question marks. But
Yeah.
overall, like, he's very dangerous, of course.
All right. Well, hey, listen, I think the top of welterweight is interesting. Once again, I think 6 months, a year ago, maybe welterweight wasn't exactly a spotlight division, but right now with Joaquin Buckley emerging, with now Sean Brady establishing himself all over again, and I know Machado Gary coming off a loss to Shafkat, but really push Shafkat like that. The top of the welterweight division is interesting, so we'll see how it plays out for Sean Brady and the rest of them. All right, Fada, let's move on. Let's talk about another thing. Man, it's my favorite topic to talk about on Overreaction Time, as Kamikaze knows. Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall, right? We've talked about Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall on this show a lot. You and I have talked about Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall a lot on the times that you've been here because, hey, this is just the hot topic, man. We need this fight to happen. Well, we got a report last week from Ariel Helwani that Jon Jones may need 6 more months to fight Tom Aspinall. So if that's the case, Fada, let me go and hit you with this. Jon Jones needing 6 more months to fight Tom Aspinall is preposterous.
I need to hear it from Jon Jones, but something tells me that Jon Jones just loves to troll. Like I don't know. Like I'm not buying the entire talk. But then again, did I think that
You
Michael Chandler
you don't think it's legit?
No, it's not that I don't think it's legit. He could have said it, but I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen. Because how long is this going to be another scenario of like when Chandler just kept waiting for Conor McGregor and he's like, you know what, I'm just going to take another fight. Like how long is Tom Aspinall willing to wait is the question, especially in his prime years. But the difference between Aspinall and Chandler is Chandler has so many exciting options at lightweight. I don't know, like outside of a Cyril Gane, who I mean, I love Cyril Gane, but he didn't look great against
Aspinall
Alexander
has to
Volkov.
wait. He has
Exactly.
to wait.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, who does he have? Jailton Almeida and Cyril Gane, who both of them in their most recent performances, it like I was excited for Gane and Aspinall before Gane fought Volkov a second time. After that, I'm not like really, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not dying for that matchup right now. So Aspinall kind of has to wait. Like, I don't think there are too many exciting options out there for him, but I don't know. Like, I do believe Jon Jones will fight. I don't think this is going to be another Conor McGregor situation, but does he need 6 months? Look, MSG, November. There you go. Is that 6 months? What are we now?
I mean, that's how the timing lines up, basically, for the most part. But
It's
like,
always MSG, isn't it?
the longer you wait, though, the more at risk we are of this fight not happening. Something bad can happen, Fada. It can happen during training. It happened with Jon Jones before. Hell, it can happen outside of the cage. That's always happened with Jon Jones. Like, this fight is on shaky ground, if you ask me. And listen, Dana White in an interview, I believe it was the ESPN interview last week, where he's like, the fight's done, or whatever he said was. But then later on in the interview, he's like, if we somehow pull this off, it's like, dude, is it done or is it not done? Is it done or is it if we somehow pull off this miracle fight out of our asses? I don't know where we are with this fight, but I really feel like it's still on shaky ground, Fada.
We'll see you at MSG. That's what I'm going to say. I feel like this is going to be MSG headliner. We can talk about it, which means we have 7 more months of talking about it on Overreaction Time. There you go.
You know it. Oh my goodness. All right. Let's move on from the Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall talk. There's enough of that because we're still going to have plenty of time to talk about it. Let's move on. Let's talk about the lightweight division, right, Fada? I want to talk about lightweight because things are heating up in the lightweight division, especially with the addition of Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria is definitely making things interesting there. You know, what's going to happen with Islam Makhachev? Is it going to be Ilia Topuria or is it going to be, Islam against somebody else? I've been on record, Fada, as saying that I do think it should be Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev next, all right? But let me hit you with this, because if it's not a title shot, then Ilia Topuria's first lightweight opponent, it should be Charles Oliveira.
I agree, but it's not going to happen since that means who is Islam going to fight? UFC don't want to rebook Arman Sarukian, do they? So
they would give him. That
Justin
seems to
Gaethje?
me like Justin Gaethje is.
That's
It's
crazy.
I think
That's crazy.
I know it is crazy, but I'm bracing myself for the announcement or the news to break at some point that Gaethje's getting the title shot.
That's crazy. And I love Justin Gaethje, and I would pay for any Justin Gaethje fight. But considering that you've got Oliveira and Arman ahead of him, I know he's a fresh matchup for Islam, but people keep questioning Islam's title run, and they're going to do the exact same if he was booked against Justin Gaethje. Out of Arman, Oliveira, and Justin Gaethje, they would question the Justin Gaethje booking more than the other two. That's how I would look at it. I know he got past Oliveira pretty easily at UFC 280, but I think at least he climbed his way back up with Gaethje. He rebounded with a win over Fiziev, a decision win. A good one, but no.
He beat him already by majority. It was another barn burner. It was a close fight. Yeah, it was nothing like where he asserted himself as, okay, yeah, let's give him the shot. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, Fiziev coming off of a layoff, he was coming off of a loss. It's just not the same. Like, even when Poirier knocked out Benoit Saint-Denis, at least Benoit Saint-Denis was on a streak. He was looking like, in some people's eyes, like a future
And then he just
contender.
dominated him.
Yeah, so at least Benoit came in with that steam, whereas Fiziev, who's very talented, wasn't. He's coming off of a layoff, hadn't fought since September 2023. I don't know. It's crazy to me. But in terms of like the matchup itself between Oliveira and Topuria, oh yeah, like that's exactly the kind of challenge that Ilia Topuria needs. A guy who can grapple, a guy who has power in his hands, underrated power in his hands, because we've seen him kind of hurt Poirier, Justin Gaethje on the feet. Like this, like Charles Oliveira is dangerous everywhere. But I just don't see it happening. So I am going to call it an overreaction because I don't know. Like, it is the fight to make, but
well, remember my overreaction. If
Sarukian?
It's not a title shot, it should be Topuria Oliveira. Or do you think there's something else that makes sense for Topuria if he doesn't get the title shot?
What? The thing is, where does that leave Arman Sarukian? Like, this is crazy. Like, this is the guy that's what, like, you know what I mean? Like, if it's Justin Gaethje against Islam, and you've got Ilia and Oliveira, at least give Arman Ilia. You know what I mean? Like, at least give him a big fight. I see what you're saying, but it's just crazy to me. Like, what do you do with Arman Sarukian? Like, how can you just shelve Arman Sarukian?
No, I got you.
Like, did he do? What did he do? Like, I mean, Tony Ferguson tripped over a wire, which sucked.
Apparently, his body just shut down on him during a weight cut, and that's his biggest crime.
Yeah, that's a hell of a crime, apparently, because if we're gonna do that, if we're gonna put Ilia and Charles Oliveira and do Gaethje and Islam, like, Arman must have done something really, really bad by pulling out of that fight. Like, sheesh, that's a bit crazy in my opinion.
Well, if it's not a title shot, I think it should be a title shot for Ilia. But if it's not, I love the idea of Ilia versus Charles. I mean, that was the first name that came up after he knocked out Max, and we started hearing about him wanting to move up to lightweight. The first name that came out of Ilia's mouth was he'd love to fight Charles Oliveira to test himself. That would at least satisfy Islam's requirement of, hey, go test yourself and establish yourself as a lightweight first. So that's where I'm coming from. Let me ask you one thing here, Farah, okay? Let's look real quick. Let's use this opportunity to look big picture at the lightweight situation, because Kamaru Usman last week on his pound for pound podcast, he pretty much like laid out what he would like to see with lightweight. So if you didn't see, let me just go ahead and read it off to you, okay? He laid out 5 matchups here. Islam versus Justin Gaethje, which we just talked about, all right? Could happen. All right, so Islam versus Justin Gaethje for the title. Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway 3, which would figure to be Dustin Poirier's retirement fight. Arman Sarukian versus Charles Oliveira 2. I don't want to see that. Dan Hooker versus the Michael Chandler Paddy Pimblett winner. And then Ilia Topuria versus Mateusz Gamrot. What? What do you think of those? What do you think of those matchups?
Who paid Kamaru to say that? Seriously. Although Gamrot's ATT, so it wouldn't make sense, right? It's a rival gym. But no, that's crazy. I know Mateos is talented. I know he's a really good grappler and whatnot. But how anticlimactic would that be for that to be Ilia Topuria's debut opponent? Of all the people that you could match him up with, to put him against Mateos Gamrot, that would seem like punishment in a weird way, without being disrespectful.
Yeah, I think you take the Chandler Patty winner out of it because depending on who wins, the next fight for either of them changes things. So I take them out. I think Gaethje and Hooker should still fight. They should still fight, and it should be Ilia in that title shot against Islam Makhachev. That's what I think.
No, I agree. And I understand Islam's team. Like Islam said it a while ago about him needing, like he said, I'm not interested in fighting Ilia like a while ago. But then since then, it's kind of been his manager who said it. And so obviously they must have discussed it and stuff like that. But I understand where Islam's coming from because people are going to be like, Ilia's a featherweight and whatnot. But I just think in terms of buzz and excitement and how talented Ilia is and how incredible he's looked and the numbers they could do, and Islam deserves a big fight like that.
They got to strike now.
Yeah, like how motivated would he be to fight a Justin Gaethje? Like I know Gaethje is dangerous and can never be underestimated, but like he knows that people are just going to be like, well, yeah, you're supposed to win that fight. What would the odds be? I haven't even looked at the odds. I'm sure somebody's put opening odds.
I haven't looked.
I guarantee he'd be around a minus 400 favorite or something like that, around that, minus 350, minus 400. So it's like, why make that matchup? At least let Gaethje rebound with one more win. If he's able to beat it, Dan Hooker, then maybe people will be calling for that a little bit more. But right now, I want to see the Ilia fight. I get it. For me, no, like in terms of like merit and all that stuff, I think they should rebook Arman Tsarukyan. But if the UFC is dead set on not making that happen, like it's an absolute no, which it appears to be, give me Ilia Topuria.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense that it's Justin Gaethje. That's for sure. Well,
yeah,
they still have a chance to make International Fight Week great again, Farah, and book Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria and Dricus du Plessis against Khamzat Chimaev on the same UFC 317 card. That is my dream for the summer, Farah. That is my dream for the summer. I'm going to speak that into existence. Make International Fight Week great again with those two fights.
You're speaking into existence because you believe Jon Jones is going to come back at MSG. I got it. Right. You know.
All right. All right, guys. Well, the time for overreacting has come to an end. Farah, it was a pleasure to have you on the show again, as always.
Pleasure to be here. I appreciate it.
All right, and everybody for watching, I appreciate you guys for watching. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and until next time, we will see you on Overreaction Time. Dana, take us away.
MMA Junkie AI.